The mining station floated in the darkness of space like a metal island. They called it Obsidian Ring. It circled a dying red star that gave weak light and little warmth. Thousands of workers lived on this station. Most of them were aliens. Only 12 were human. Jake Reeves was one of those 12 humans. He was 34 years old. He came from a small town in Ohio. Back on Earth, he had been nobody special. Just a man who fixed things. A structural engineer. He knew how to make broken things work again. The aliens who ran the station were called the Velki. They stood 7 feet tall. Their skin was gray and thick like armor. Bones grew on the outside of their bodies, forming natural protection. They were strong. They were cruel. And they believed humans were weak little creatures who existed only to serve them. Jake did not argue with them. He kept his head down. He worked his shifts in the lower levels of the station where the air was bad and the lights were dim. He fixed pipes. He repaired walls. He did whatever they told him to do. Every month, he sent money back to Earth. His sister Emma needed it. She was raising 2 kids alone. Jake had promised their dying mother that he would take care of Emma, so he took this terrible job on this terrible station. Far from home, far from the sun, far from everything he loved. He told himself it was only for 2 more years. Then his contract would end. Then he could go home. But the universe had different plans for Jake Reeves. It happened on shift 47. Jake was working deep in Sector 9, checking the support beams that held the station together. The metal here was old. It groaned and creaked like a tired old man. Jake had written reports about it. He had warned the Velki commanders that this section was dangerous. They ignored him. Humans were not worth listening to. Jake was alone when the first beam broke. The sound was terrible. Metal screaming against metal. The floor shook beneath his feet. Jake turned to run, but there was nowhere to go. The ceiling came down. Tons of twisted steel and broken machinery fell on top of him. Pain exploded through his body. He felt his bones snap like dry sticks. His arm, his leg, his ribs, his hip. Everything broke at once. The weight pressed down on him, crushing the air from his lungs. He could not breathe. He could not move. He could not scream. Darkness took him. When Jake opened his eyes again, he saw white lights above him. He heard beeping machines. He smelled medicine and clean air. He was in the medical bay. A face appeared above him. Human. Female. Brown hair pulled back tight. Tired eyes that had seen too much. "Don't try to move," she said. Her voice was calm but firm. "You're badly hurt." Her name was Lisa Morgan. She was the only human doctor on the station. The Velki allowed her to treat the human workers because they did not want to waste their own medical supplies on such unimportant creatures. Jake tried to speak. His voice came out as a whisper. "How bad?" Lisa looked at him for a long moment. Then she told him the truth. 17 bones, she said. 17 broken bones. Your ribs, your left arm, your right leg, your pelvis, your collarbone. The scans show fractures everywhere. By all medical logic, you should be dead. Jake closed his eyes. 17 bones. The number floated in his mind like a dark cloud. The door to the medical bay opened with a hiss. Heavy footsteps entered. Jake did not need to look. He knew those footsteps. Every human on the station knew them. Commander Torek, the Velki who ruled Obsidian Ring. Torek walked to Jake's bed and looked down at him. His gray face showed no emotion. His yellow eyes were cold like stones. "This one is broken," Torek said. He spoke to Lisa as if Jake was not there. As if Jake was just a piece of damaged equipment. "It cannot work. It cannot serve. Dispose of it." Lisa stepped forward. She was small next to Tarek. The top of her head barely reached his chest. But she did not back away. "He's alive," she said. "I can save him." Torek made a sound. It might have been a laugh. Humans do not survive such injuries. Your species is fragile, weak. This one will die within days. Why waste resources? "Because he's my patient," Lisa said. "And I don't give up on my patients." Torek stared at her. The moment stretched out long and dangerous. Then he turned and walked away. "Do as you wish," he said over his shoulder. "But when it dies, you will dispose of the body yourself. I will not waste Velki workers on human garbage." The door closed behind him. Lisa turned back to Jake. She looked at his broken body, at the machines keeping him alive, at the impossible task ahead of her. "Can you really save me?" Jake asked. Lisa picked up her surgical tools. "I'm going to try." The surgery lasted 12 hours. Lisa worked alone. No one helped her. No one cared enough to help. She cut and stitched and repaired with hands that grew more tired with each passing hour. Twice during the surgery, Jake's heart stopped. The machines screamed their warnings. Lisa shocked his heart back to life. Once, twice. Each time, she thought she had lost him. Each time, he came back. When she finally finished, the station had completed almost half a rotation around the dying star. Lisa sat beside Jake's bed, too exhausted to move. Her hands were steady. They had to be for surgery, but inside, she was shaking. She had done everything medical science allowed. She had used every trick she knew. But she was not sure it would be enough. 3 days passed. Jake did not wake up. His body lay still on the bed. Only the machines showed that he was still alive. His heart beat slowly. His lungs breathed with help from tubes. The broken bones inside him had started the long process of healing. Lisa watched over him. She barely slept. She barely ate. Other humans came to visit, the few who dared. They looked at Jake through the medical bay window. They whispered to each other. "He won't make it," they said. No one could survive that. On the 4th morning, Lisa was checking Jake's vital signs when she noticed something. His fingers moved. Just a little. Just a twitch. But it was movement. She leaned close. "Jake, can you hear me?" His eyes opened. They were clouded with pain. They were heavy with exhaustion. But they were open. They were alive. And deep inside them, Lisa saw something that made her breath catch in her throat. She saw fire. She saw determination. She saw a man who had looked death in the face and refused to blink. "I'm still here," Jake whispered, "and against all odds. Against everything the Velki believed about humans. Against the universe itself." That simple statement was true. Jake Reeves was still alive. The impossible had happened. But this was only the beginning. News spread quickly on Obsidian Ring. There were no secrets on a space station. Everyone knew everyone else's business. And everyone knew about Jake Reeves, the human who should have died. The human who refused to die. Aliens from every species began gathering outside the medical bay. They pressed their faces against the windows. They watched Jake like he was some strange creature in a cage. And in a way, he was. He was something they had never seen before. Something they could not understand. The Velki healed slowly. When one of them broke a single bone, they needed months to recover. They lay still in their beds. They waited. They did not move until the bone was fully repaired. Movement meant pain. Pain meant weakness. And the Velki hated weakness more than anything. The Kreth were even worse. These insect-like aliens had hard shells on the outside, but inside they were soft. If a Kreth broke something, it never healed properly. Many Kreth had died from injuries that humans would call minor, but Jake was different. Jake was human. And humans, the aliens were learning, did not follow the same rules. 2 weeks after his surgery, Jake tried to stand. Lisa told him not to. She begged him to rest. His bones were still fragile. The metal pins inside him were the only things holding him together. If he fell, he could break everything again. Jake listened to her warnings. Then he grabbed the bars beside his bed and pulled himself up anyway. The pain was incredible. It shot through his body like electricity. Every broken bone screamed at him to stop. Every damaged muscle burned like fire. Sweat poured down his face. His arm shook. His legs trembled. He fell. Lisa rushed to help him, but Jake pushed her away. He grabbed the bars again. He pulled himself up again. He stood for 3 seconds before his right leg gave out, and he crashed to the floor again. The aliens watching through the window made sounds of confusion. Why was he doing this? Why was he hurting himself? It made no sense to them. Jake wiped the blood from his lip where he had bitten it. He looked at the bars. He grabbed them again. This time he stood for 5 seconds. Day after day, the same scene repeated. Jake would pull himself up. He would stand. He would fall. He would bleed. And then he would do it all over again. A young Kreth named Ven came to the window every day to watch. Ven worked in the food processing center. He had never spoken to a human before. He found them strange and confusing. But he could not look away from Jake. One day, Ven found the courage to ask Lisa a question. She was standing outside the medical bay, taking a short break, drinking something from a metal cup. Why does he continue? Ven asked. His voice clicked and buzzed in the way of his people. His body is destroyed. He should accept his fate. He should rest and wait for death. Why does he fight? Lisa looked at the young alien. She thought about the question. It was a good question. A fair question. Any other species would have given up long ago. Because he's human, Lisa said simply. We don't know how to quit. Ven tilted his head, confused. But the pain, the suffering, it must be terrible. Lisa nodded. It is terrible. It's probably the worst pain he's ever felt in his life. But humans have this strange thing inside us. Some people call it stubbornness. Some people call it hope. Jake would probably call it spite. Spite? He wants to prove everyone wrong. The Velki said he would die. They threw him away like garbage. And now he's going to walk again just to show them that they were wrong about him. About all of us. Ven watched Jake through the window. The human had fallen again. Blood dripped from a wound on his arm where he had hit the edge of the bed. But already he was reaching for the bars again. Already he was preparing to try once more. Humans are very strange, Ven said. Yes, Lisa agreed. We are. The weeks passed. Jake's progress was slow but steady. First he could stand for 10 seconds. Then 30. Then a full minute. Then he took his first step. That first step was ugly. His leg dragged. His body tilted. He almost fell 3 times in the space of moving 1 foot forward. But it was a step. It was movement. It was proof that the impossible could become possible. By the 6th week, Jake was walking. Not well, not fast, but walking. He moved down the hallways of the medical bay with a strange, limping stride. His body was crooked. The bones had not healed perfectly straight. Metal pins held everything together inside him. He walked like a man made of broken pieces that had been glued back together by an amateur. But he walked. The aliens could not believe it. They whispered to each other in their own languages. They pointed at Jake when he passed. They stared with eyes and sensors and antennae. None of them understood how this was happening. Commander Torek received reports about Jake's recovery. At first, he ignored them. A human walking around did not concern him. But then the reports changed. They became more troubling. The other human workers were acting differently. Before Jake's accident, the humans on Obsidian Ring had been quiet, obedient. They did their work without complaint. They accepted insults and abuse from the Velki without fighting back. They were, in the eyes of the Velki, perfectly broken. But now something had changed. The humans walked taller. They looked aliens in the eye. When a Velki guard pushed a human worker, the human pushed back. Small acts of resistance began appearing everywhere. Humans started working together, helping each other, protecting each other, and they all spoke one name with something that sounded almost like Reverence Jake to REK called one of his enforcers into his office. A large Velki named Drax. Drax was known for his cruelty. He enjoyed hurting the weak. He especially enjoyed hurting humans. The human situation is becoming a problem, Torek said. Drax nodded his massive head. I have noticed. They are becoming bold. It started with the one who survived. The one called Jake. I know him. I have seen him walking. He moves like prey with a broken leg. Torek leaned forward. This cannot continue. The humans must remember their place. They must remember that they are nothing. They must remember fear. What would you have me do? Torek smiled. It was not a pleasant sight. Remind them. By the 10th week, Jake returned to light duty. He could not do the heavy work he had done before. His body was still healing, but he could do simple repairs. He could check systems. He could be useful. The first day he left the medical bay for work, something happened that no one expected. The other humans gathered to meet him. All 11 of them. They stood in a line in the corridor outside the medical bay. They did not cheer. They did not speak. They simply stood there and watched him walk past. And as Jake walked by them, each human nodded at him. A small gesture. A simple acknowledgement. But it meant everything. You survived, that nod said. You showed us what we are capable of. You gave us hope. Jake nodded back at each of them. He did not know what to say. He was just a man who had gotten hurt and refused to die. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like a collection of broken bones held together with metal and willpower. But as he walked toward his workstation, he noticed something else. The Kreth workers watched him pass. The water-dwelling Morn peered at him from their tanks. Even the strange rock-like Threll turned their crystal eyes to follow him. They were all watching. They were all paying attention, and in their alien minds, they were all asking the same question. If a human could survive 17 shattered bones, what else could humans survive? What else might humans be capable of? Jake did not know that his recovery had planted a seed. He did not know that seed would grow into something that would change everything. All he knew was that he was alive. He was walking. And nobody, not the Velki, not Commander Torek, not even death itself, was going to stop him from going home to his sister. Somewhere in the shadows, Drax was watching too. And he was already planning how to break this human once and for all. 3 months had passed since the accident. Jake was stronger now. His bones had healed. Some of them had grown back thicker than before, reinforced by the metal inside him. His body still hurt every day. It would always hurt. But he had learned to live with pain. Pain was an old friend now. Pain reminded him that he was alive. Jake worked the middle shifts in Sector 4. It was cleaner work than before. Easier work. The other humans had arranged it quietly. They made sure Jake did not have to go back to the dangerous lower levels. They protected him without being asked. But not everyone wanted to protect. Jake Reeves. Drax had been waiting for the right moment. He was patient for a Velki. Most of his kind acted on impulse, letting anger guide their hands. But Drax was different. Drax liked to plan. He liked to choose his moments carefully. He liked to make sure his prey had nowhere to run before he struck. Tonight was the night. Tommy Price was 19 years old. He was the youngest human on the station. He had taken this job to pay off his father's debts back on Earth. He was skinny and scared and far from home. He reminded Jake of himself at that age. Tommy worked the night shift in Cargo Bay 7. It was quiet work, moving boxes and checking inventory. Boring but safe. Or so everyone thought. Drax found Tommy alone near the back of the cargo bay. The young human was counting crates, marking numbers on his tablet. He did not hear Drax approach. Velki could move quietly when they wanted to. The first Tommy knew of danger was when a massive gray hand grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "Hello, little human," Drax said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. That made it worse somehow. "We need to talk." Tommy could not speak. The hand around his throat was too tight. He kicked his legs in the air. He clawed at Drax's fingers. It made no difference. "Your kind has forgotten something important," Drax continued. "You have forgotten that you are nothing. You are weak. You are prey. This station belongs to the Velki. You exist only because we allow it." He threw Tommy across the room. The young human crashed into a stack of crates and fell to the floor. He coughed and gasped for air. His whole body shook with fear. Drax walked toward him slowly. "The one called Jake has given your people false hope. He survived an accident. That is all. It means nothing. But you humans have started to believe you are something special. You have started to believe you matter." He picked Tommy up again, this time by the arm. He squeezed. Bones creaked under his grip. "I am going to teach you a lesson tonight," Drax said. "And then I will teach the same lesson to every human on this station. Starting with Jake. Let him go." The voice came from the shadows near the cargo bay door. It was quiet, calm, but there was something in it that made even Drax pause. Jake stepped into the light. He looked small. He looked broken. His left arm hung slightly crooked from where it had healed wrong. His right leg dragged a little when he walked. His body was thin and covered in scars. He did not look like a threat. Drax laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. The famous Jake Reeves. The human who would not die. "I was hoping you would come." "Let him go," Jake repeated. Drax threw Tommy aside like a doll. The young human hit the floor and scrambled away, crawling toward the far wall. He wanted to run. He wanted to scream for help. But his legs would not work. All he could do was watch. Drax spread his arms wide. "You should have died in that collapse, human. You should have stayed dead. Now I must finish what the station started." Jake did not respond. He just stood there, watching Drax with those strange, calm eyes. Drax charged. The Velki was fast for his size. 7 feet of muscle and bone armor moving like a freight train. His fist swung toward Jake's head with enough force to crack stone. Jake was not there. He had moved at the last second, sliding sideways, letting Drax's momentum carry him past. The Velki stumbled, surprised. He had expected to feel bones breaking under his fist. Instead, he had hit nothing but air. He turned and attacked again. This time he was more careful, more controlled. He swung with both hands, trying to grab Jake, trying to crush him. Jake kept moving. He was not fast. His damaged body would not allow speed. But he was clever. He used the cargo bay against Drax, moving between crates, slipping into spaces too narrow for the large alien to follow. "Fight me properly," Drax roared. His voice echoed through the cargo bay. "Stop running like the coward you are." Jake stopped. He stood in an open space between the crates. He looked at Drax without fear. "Okay," he said. Drax charged again. This time, Jake did not move away. He moved forward. What happened next? Tommy would never forget. Jake ducked under Drax's swing and drove his fist into the alien's throat. Not hard enough to kill Jake, was not strong enough for that, but hard enough to hurt. Hard enough to surprise. Drax staggered, choking. Jake did not give him time to recover. He moved in close, inside the Velky's reach, and started hitting pressure points that Lisa had taught him during his recovery. The neck, the joints where the bone armor was thin, the cluster of nerves behind the ear. Each strike was precise. Each strike was painful, but Drax was still Velky. He was still strong. He recovered and grabbed Jake by the shoulder. His grip tightened. Bones cracked. Jake screamed. It was the first sound of pain he had made. But he did not fall. He did not stop. Instead, he headbutted Drax right in the face. The Velky's nose broke. Blood purple and thick poured down his gray face. He released Jake and stumbled backward, shocked. No human had ever hurt him before. No human had ever dared. They fought for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Drax landed heavy blows that knocked Jake down again and again. Jake absorbed the punishment and kept getting up. He bled from cuts on his face and arms. 3 of his newly healed ribs cracked again. His left eye swelled shut, but he would not stay down. Finally, Jake saw his opening. Drax was tired. He was bleeding. He was confused. He had expected to kill a weak human in seconds. Instead, he had been fighting for his life. Jake grabbed a metal pipe from a broken crate. He swung it with everything he had left. The pipe connected with Drax's skull. The Velky's eyes rolled back. He fell like a great tree in a forest, crashing to the cargo bay floor with a sound that shook the walls. He did not get up. Jake stood over the fallen Velky. He was broken again. He could barely breathe. He knew Lisa would be furious with him when she saw the damage he had done to himself, but he was still standing. They looked up at the security cameras. He knew they were recording. He knew Commander Torek would see this. He knew every alien on the station would see this. "We're not prey," Jake said. His voice was rough, tired, but clear. "Not anymore." Then his legs gave out and he collapsed next to his enemy. When the security team found them, Jake was unconscious but alive. Drax was alive too, but barely. His skull was fractured. He would survive, but he would never be the same. The recording spread across the station within hours. Aliens watched it again and again. They could not believe what they were seeing. A human broken, damaged, barely held together with metal and scar tissue, had defeated a Velky. Enforcer in single combat. Everything was about to change. And in his office, Commander Torek watched the recording with cold, calculating eyes. He was not angry. He was something far more dangerous. He was planning. The story of Jake Reeves spread like fire through dry grass. Every species on Obsidian. Ring heard about the fight in Cargo Bay 7. The Kreth workers clicked and buzzed about it in their hives. The Moran discussed it in their water tanks, their voices making bubbles as they spoke. Even the silent Threll, beings of living rock who rarely communicated with anyone, passed the news among themselves through vibrations in the station's walls. A human had defeated a Velky, a broken human. A human held together with metal pins and stubbornness. It should not have been possible. But it had happened. They had all seen the recording. Jake spent a week in the medical bay after the fight. Lisa fixed his cracked ribs. She reset the bones that had shifted. She stitched his cuts and treated his bruises. And the whole time, she lectured him. "You could have died," she said. 3 of your ribs broke again. Your shoulder was dislocated. You lost blood. What were you thinking?" Jake looked at her from his bed. His face was swollen and purple. One eye was still closed, but the other eye was calm. "I was thinking that Tommy needed help," he said simply. "What else was I supposed to do?" Lisa had no answer for that. In her heart, she knew Jake had done the right thing. But she was scared. Scared of what would happen next. Scared of what Commander Torek might do. Her fears were not wrong. Torek sat alone in his command center, staring at screens filled with reports. The station was changing. He could feel it. The balance of power that had existed for years was shifting, and he did not like where it was shifting to. The humans were the smallest group on the station, only 12 workers out of thousands. But their influence was growing. Other species were starting to look at them differently, starting to listen to them, starting to see them as something more than weak little creatures meant for hard labor, and it was all because of one man. Torek had faced problems before, rebellions, uprisings, worker strikes. He had crushed them all with ease. But this was different. Jake Reeves was not leading a rebellion. He was not making speeches or organizing protests. He was just surviving, just refusing to break. And somehow, that simple refusal was more powerful than any rebellion Torek had faced. He reached for his communication device and sent a message to Velki Command. He requested military support. 200 soldiers. Heavy weapons. Authorization to use any force necessary to restore order. The response came within hours. His request was approved. A warship called the Iron Dawn would arrive in 30 days. Torek smiled. In 30 days, the human problem would be solved forever. But 30 days was a long time. And Torek did not know what was happening in the lower levels of his station. Jake had become something he never wanted to be. A symbol. Humans sought him out in the corridors. They thanked him. They told him their stories. They shared their anger and their fear and their hope. Jake listened to all of them. He did not know what else to do. But it was not just humans who came to him. Then, the young Kreth appeared at Jake's door one night. His insect body trembled with nervousness. His eyes, dozens of small black orbs, looked everywhere except at Jake. "I need to tell you something," Ven said. "Something dangerous." Jake let him in. He closed the door and waited. Ven told him about the Kreth, about how the Velki treated them. They were used as disposable workers in the most dangerous parts of the station. They were given the worst food, the worst housing. When they died, and many died, their bodies were thrown into the recycling systems like garbage. "We hate them," Ven said. "We have always hated them. But we were afraid. We thought we were alone. We thought no one else would stand with us. And now?" Jake asked. Ven's mandibles clicked together. It was the Kreth way of smiling. "Now we have seen a human fight a Velki and win. Now we think, maybe we are not alone." Jake felt the weight of that statement. It was heavy. Too heavy for one broken man to carry. But he knew he could not refuse it. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "We share information. We watch. We listen. We know things the Velki do not want us to know. We know their schedules, their security codes, their weaknesses. We want to share this with you. Why me?" Ven looked at him directly for the first time. "Because you did not run. Because you got back up when you should have stayed down. Because you showed us what courage looks like." More visitors came in the following days. A Morin named Kel, who controlled part of the life support systems. A group of Thrall who could access the station's power grid. Human workers who had learned the security schedules through years of quiet observation. Jake did not ask for this. He did not want to be a leader. But leadership found him anyway. Lisa watched all of this with growing concern. One night, she pulled Jake aside in her quarters, the only place they could speak without being recorded. "They're planning something, Jake. Commander Torek has requested military reinforcement. They're calling you a terrorist. A ship is coming. Soldiers. 200 of them. In less than 30 days. Jake stared out the viewport at the dying red star. Its light painted his face in shades of blood and rust. I'm just a guy who didn't die when he should have, he said quietly. That's not terrorism. That's biology. Lisa grabbed his arm and turned him to face her. To them, it's the same thing. Don't you understand? You scared them. A single human did something they thought was impossible. And now every other species on this station is starting to wonder what else might be possible. So what do you want me to do? Hide? Pretend none of this happened? Let them crush everyone who trusted me. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. No, I want you to win. Jake looked at her in surprise. If we're going to do this, Lisa continued, we do it right. We prepare. We plan. We use every advantage we have. And when that ship comes, we make sure we're ready. You could die, Jake said. We all could. Lisa smiled sadly. I've spent 5 years on this station watching humans be treated like animals. Watching them work themselves to death so the Valky can get richer. I'm tired of watching, Jake. I'm ready to fight. The next 4 weeks were the busiest of Jake's life. He met with representatives from every species. Kreth, Moore and Thrall. Even some Valky workers who had grown tired of serving cruel masters. They shared information. They made plans. They identified weaknesses in the station's security. The Kreth knew every tunnel and vent on Obsidian Ring. The Moran controlled life support. The air everyone breathed. The water everyone drank. The Thrall could access the power grid and shut down systems whenever they wanted. The humans knew the structure of the station better than anyone. They had built it. After all got together, they were stronger than anyone realized. Together, they might have a chance. But time was running out. On the 29th day, a message arrived. The Iron Dawn had entered the system. 200 Valky soldiers were less than 1 day away. Jake gathered his people in a secret meeting deep in the station's core. Aliens and humans crowded together in the dim space. They looked at him with hope and fear in their eyes. Tomorrow they come, Jake said. His voice was calm, steady, the voice of a man who had already died once and no longer feared death. 200 soldiers. Heavy weapons. Orders to destroy anyone who resists. Silence. Heavy and thick. But we have something they don't expect, Jake continued. We have each other. We have this station. And we have something the Valky will never understand. He looked around at the faces watching him. Human and alien. All of them scared. All of them brave. We don't quit, Jake said. We don't give up. We fight until we can't fight anymore, and then we fight some more. That's what makes us dangerous. Not strength. Not weapons. Whoa. He raised his fist, the same fist that had knocked Drax unconscious. The same fist that was covered in scars from all the times he had fallen and gotten back up. Are you with me? The answer came as a roar. Every voice raised together. Every species united in that moment. Tomorrow, the Iron Dawn would arrive. Tomorrow, they would learn what happened when you pushed the weak too far. Tomorrow, everything would change. The Iron Dawn entered orbit around Obsidian Ring at exactly 0800 station time. It was a massive ship, black as the void it traveled through, bristling with weapons and armored in plates of reinforced metal. 200 Valky soldiers waited inside, eager for battle. Commander Torek watched the warship approach from his command center. Finally, he thought. Finally, this human problem would end. He opened a communication channel to the Iron Dawn's captain. Welcome to Obsidian Ring. I will prepare the docking bay for your arrival. Understood? The captain replied. We will begin deployment within the hour. Is the target secured? Torek smiled. The human called Jake Reeves moves freely about the station. He believes he is organizing a rebellion. He does not know we are aware of his plans. He will be easy to find. Excellent. We will make an example of him." The channel closed. Torek leaned back in his chair and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Soon everything would return to normal. The humans would be put back in their place. The other species would remember their fear. Order would be restored. He was wrong about all of it. Deep in the station's core, Jake and his people were not hiding. They were waiting. Lisa stood at a control panel, her fingers ready on the buttons. Behind her, Keldamarin floated in a portable water tank, connected to the life support systems. 3 Thrall workers held positions near the power grid access points, and scattered throughout the station, in tunnels and corridors and hidden rooms. Over 1,000 workers waited for the signal. "The docking bay doors are opening," someone reported. "The Iron Dawn is preparing to dock." Jake stood in the center of the room. He was not armed. He carried no weapons. His only armor was the scar tissue that covered his body and the metal pins that held his bones together. "How many soldiers?" he asked. 200, just like we expected. Plus the ship's crew of 50. Jake nodded. 250 Velki against 1,000 workers. The odds were not good, but they were not supposed to be good. They were supposed to be impossible, just like surviving 17 shattered bones. "Remember the plan," Jake said. "No fighting unless we have to. We control the station. We control the air they breathe, the water they drink, the lights they see by. We don't need to beat them in battle. We just need to show them that they can't beat us." The docking bay doors opened. The Iron Dawn connected to the station. Velki soldiers poured out in perfect formation, weapons ready. Eyes searching for threats. They found an empty docking bay. The commander of the soldiers, a battle-scarred Velki named General Krog, frowned. He had expected resistance. He had expected at least some show of force. Instead, there was nothing. Just empty corridors and silence. "Spread out," he ordered. "Find the rebels. Start with the human quarters." His soldiers moved into the station. They marched down hallways. They kicked in doors. They searched every room, every storage space, every corner. They found no one. The human quarters were empty. The worker barracks were empty. Even the Velki residential areas were empty. The entire station seemed abandoned. General Krog felt something he had not felt in many years. Uncertainty. "Where are they?" he demanded over his communicator. "Where is everyone?" Commander Tarek's voice came back, strained with confusion. I don't know. They were all here this morning. The sensors showed thousands of life signs. But now what? Now the sensors show life signs are all concentrated in 2 areas. The command center, where I am, and the central core, the heart of the station, where all the critical systems came together. Life support, power, communications, everything that kept Obsidian Ring alive. General Krog understood immediately. They had walked into a trap. "All units move to the central core," he shouted. "Break through whatever defenses they have. Kill anyone who resists." The soldiers charged through the corridors. They moved fast, weapons raised, ready for battle. They reached the central core access doors and found them sealed. The locks had been changed. Their codes did not work. "Breach the door." Krog ordered his soldiers brought up explosive charges. They placed them against the heavy metal doors. They prepared to blow them open. That was when the lights went out. Complete darkness. No emergency lights. No backup systems. Just absolute blackness. And then the air started getting thin in the central core. The Morin named Kel adjusted the life support controls with careful precision. He was not cutting off air completely that would kill innocents. He was just reducing oxygen levels to the areas where the soldiers were gathered. Not enough to kill. Just enough to weaken. To slow them down. To make them afraid, the Thrall had already shut down power to the docking bay. The Iron Dawn was trapped, unable to undock, unable to fire its weapons, unable to do anything but sit there uselessly, and throughout the station, 1,000 workers watched and waited. General Krog's soldiers began to panic. They could not see. They could not breathe properly. Their weapons were useless in the dark. They could not tell friend from enemy. Some of them started shooting blindly. Some of them started running. Disciplined Collop said Krog tried to restore order. He screamed commands into his communicator. But his soldiers were not listening anymore. They were scared. The mighty Velki, the undefeated warriors, were scared in the command center. Commander Torek watched his screens fill with chaos. His soldiers were in disarray. His ship was trapped. And he was alone with only a handful of guards. The door to his command center opened. Jake walked in. He walked alone. No weapons. No army behind him. Just one man with 17 scars, where 17 bones had broken. Torek's guards moved to intercept him, but Torek raised a hand to stop them. He wanted to face this human himself. He wanted to understand. "You planned all of this," Torek said. It was not a question. Jake nodded. "We planned it together. Humans, Kreth, Marn, Thrall, even some Velki who were tired of serving masters who treated them like tools. Why? What do you want? Money? Power? Freedom to leave." Jake walked closer. He stopped just a few feet from Tarek, close enough to see the confusion in those cold yellow eyes. "I want you to understand something," Jake said. "You looked at humans and saw weakness. You saw creatures that break easily. And you thought that made us inferior." He reached up and touched the scar on his chest, just above his heart. The scar from where his ribs had punctured his own flesh when they shattered. "But you never understood what breaking really means for us. When we break, we don't give up. We heal. We learn. We come back stronger. Every scar is a lesson. Every fracture is a challenge we overcame. You saw 17 broken bones and thought I was finished. I saw 17 reasons to keep fighting." Torek said nothing. For the first time in his life, he had no response. "Here's what's going to happen," Jake continued. "You're going to order your soldiers to stand down. You're going to contact Velki Command and tell them that Obsidian Ring is no longer under their control. And then you're going to leave this station, all of you, and never come back." And if I refuse, Jake looked at him with eyes that had seen death up close. Eyes that held no fear. "Then we cut life support completely. We vent the atmosphere in every section where your soldiers are located. We disable your ship and let you drift until your supplies run out. We have control of everything. You have control of nothing. You would kill 200 soldiers? You would murder them. I would rather not. But I will do whatever is necessary to protect my people. All my people. Human and alien alike. That's the difference between us, Commander. You fight because you enjoy power. We fight because we have no other choice." The silence stretched between them. Heavy. Final then. Commander Tarek lowered his head. "Stand down," he said into his communicator. "All units stand down by the next morning." Obsidian Ring was free. The Velki soldiers were escorted back to their ship. Commander Torek was placed in restraints and locked in his own brig. The Iron Dawn undocked and began its long journey home, carrying the news of what had happened to Velki Command. A human had led a rebellion against the Velki Dominion. A human with 17 shattered bones had united 1,000 workers and taken control of a space station without firing a single shot. The impossible had become real. Jake stood in the command center, looking out at the dying red star. He did not feel like a hero. He felt tired. His body hurt. His bones ached. He wanted nothing more than to sleep for a very long time. Lisa found him there an hour later. "News is spreading," she said. "Other stations are hearing about what happened here. Other species. Other humans, what are they saying? She smiled. They're saying that humans are not weak. They're saying that maybe, just maybe, humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because of strength, not because of technology, but because we don't know how to quit. Jake thought about his sister Emma. Back on Earth, he thought about the promise he had made to their mother. He thought about all the humans who would work on stations like this one, far from home, for generations to come. Maybe things could be different for them. Maybe they would not have to suffer like he had suffered. Maybe they would be treated with respect. Maybe he had actually made a difference. What happens now? He asked. Lisa stood beside him and looked out at the stars. Now we send a message to every station in the galaxy. We tell them what happened here. We tell them that we are not prey. We tell them that we are not afraid. She paused. We tell them about the man with 17 shattered bones who refused to die.